Welcome to Lizzie's Workshop and the third part in my Sprite series for Mixed Media Monday. Today I'm going to bring the last two videos together and bring all the components together, glue them all down, and put all the finishing touches into this project. So the first thing I did was I cut the Sprite out with my scissors once the matte medium had dried. And now I'm going to go through and cover the backside with the heavy matte gel, and that's from Golden. And I'm going to put glue her onto the page with that. And then I'm going to put my nonstick mat on top of her, and then I'm going to stack a book on top of her so that she dries nice and flat and stays down. I could have taken my heat gun and used my heat gun while I was putting pressure on things, but I wanted to get on with another project at the same time. So then I'm just going to quickly trim up my edges so that everything looks nice and clear. And that's that. Now I thought about whether or not I wanted to add more to the background, and I was perfectly content with how the background was, and then I decided that I just wanted her to pop out from that background. So I didn't make any more changes to the background. I'm just going to make the changes to the sprite. Now, because I want her to pop out of the background, I've decided that I'm going to outline everything in black. Now, I don't always do this. Sometimes I make sure that I do the light and the dark in order to create the shading and the shine all over the project. But this time I decided I was going to do a black outline over everything so that all of her features would pop out. And I didn't like this camera angle. I will change it in a moment so you can actually see what's going on. It's really difficult to do close-up pen work with a what's it called? A webcam. There we go. Because it's really hard to get the right angle. So I got this little mini Gorilla tripod thing, and I decided I would try that. And I think I got it a little bit better, but I'm going to have to play with it a little bit more. So don't get mad at me for my bad camera angles. So I go in and I add eyelashes, and the way that I add eyelashes is just to add basically check marks off of the angle of the eyelid, and then I gave her lots of nice thick eyelashes, and then I went in and went through and put in the black line over every other aspect of her face. Then I'm going to do the rest of her in the same black line. Now this is a Faber-Castell Pitt pen, and I believe that it is the small size, because my fine point pen didn't want to work on the medium. And so I switched to a finer pen, and I'm using a very light hand, and it's gliding just fine. Now, if any of my mediums had been wet, I never would have done this. Always make sure that everything is nice and dry before you bring your pen to do the finished details. So I go through and I outline absolutely everything on her, and then I decide that she needs a little bit more detail. She needs some more character. She needs to look a little bit more magical. And so I decided to go and add some design work to her wings. And I didn't really have a plan for it. I just kind of thought, you know what, she'll speak to me and she'll tell me when I'm doing it right. So that's how I went along with it. So I really like how I created this dark line work in here and created the shadowing with the colors I put on, and then I went through and added the black line. So wherever there's supposed to be a shadow and I add the black line, I just love how it went down. I'm not sure after the fact that I like the black line over everything, but it all works out pretty well. Then I'm just going to go through on her skirt and add in some, now this is, really thick and heavy with the crayons, the water-soluble crayons. And so my pen is not keeping a consistent line, and that is okay. I'm okay with that. And then it's just adding in all the little squigglies and stuff like that. And I did want it to look a little bit more shiny and magical and stuff, so I do add some metallics to it at the end of this video. So now I'm going to just outline her wings, and it's not enough just to outline them, so I decided to add in a pattern as well. And it's very difficult to do line work along the edge of a wing. So later on, after I've done a couple things, what I'll do is I'll go in and I'll reinforce that line with a wiggly line on the inside of the wing. And then I'm going to just go and start doodling on her wings. Now I'm doing this all in permanent pen, and there is some risk in that, and if you're not comfortable, then you could have drawn them on in pencil first and then trace things out. But the reason that I did it in pen is because I knew I would not be able to erase anyways. It wouldn't have allowed that, the mediums that I'm working on, and I would have damaged what I already had down. And so I thought, you know what, I'm not going to erase, I can't erase, we'll just live with it however it comes out. And even here, I'll do the same. I'll just keep modifying the line and the curve until it comes out in the way that I want it to. And if this line comes out a little bit too thick, then I'll just adjust the other side to match and go on and on. And then I got to thinking that these wings aren't going to match anyway, so nothing has to be symmetrical. This is a humanoid type of figure, and humans are not symmetrical. So I got over that quickly, and then I just kind of kept the idea of the patterns similar and went from there. Now I did want to show that there's kind of a webbing along inside the wing, and so that's where that squiggly line idea came from. But I thought, you know what, it's not enough. It does say that it's along the edge of the wing, but let's put it on the inside of the wing too, so that it makes sense to think of these as separate spaces throughout her wings. And then I could have zentangled in any fashion, or patterned or doodled in any fashion inside of those spaces. And I decided to keep something curvilinear and flowy, and I did this line work in here. And I wouldn't say that it comes out as a web or a mesh or anything like that. It just kind of comes out as a whole bunch of definition in the background. So there you go, a bunch of little laces and such throughout the background. And then I'm going to go over to the other wing, and I'm going to follow suit with that one. The reason I keep going off the screen is because of the bottom of her wings. She has wings lower down too, but I didn't want to keep adjusting my camera angle, and so I do go off screen a little bit, but you'll see how that turns out once I am finished. So once I get this line work in here, I thought, okay, well maybe I'll just leave the line work as it is, and then I got to thinking, no, that's boring, we're not going to do that. So I go through and I look at my binder of patterns, and I decide, oh, this pattern is nice, I'll keep with this one. And so that's what I do, and then I make sure that it has that type of pattern on it throughout both wings. And I did count here. I did say, okay, I have one string of this pattern on this side, so I'll put one string of that pattern on that side, and so on. So now that my white has dried, I'm kind of like, oh, well, I need to add some more in here because I can add in another layer and put in a little bit of shine to this. And that's what I did. Anything that would have the light directly shining on it, I went in and added some more white to. And so the first layer that went down was quite opaque, and now, transparent, and now I'm making a lot of it just a little bit more opaque, and then adding a whole bunch more white in just for effect. And then I'm, creating that light and dark contrast in there. So the next thing I'm going to do is take the white, and I'm going to add in some dots where I have circles in the patterning, and that will create some contrast within the wing as well. And the way that the wing is right now, it kind of makes the white shine a little bit. And then I thought, oh, we'll just ghost this out just a little bit, and then we'll be okay. So once I'm all done with this, I got to thinking about how I was going to do the ethereal look within her dress, and I couldn't think of anything really. I thought of that that paper where it's kind of all kinds of shiny on one side and whatever on the other side, and there's all kinds of foils and stuff. And so I started off by going through and finding my indigo blue flitter glue, and that's one of those glues that you adhere, you put it on, you apply it, and then you have to let it dry for at least an hour. And then after that, you go and you can add your mediums to it. So tin foil or foil flakes or, oh, excuse me, anything like that. And so once I get this on here, I go hunting through my drawers. And I wasn't quite certain if I wanted just kind of a solid foil, and so the only solid foils that I had were green and red, like Christmassy colors. I didn't really want that. I had another one that had, that kind of shone to a level of pink, and I didn't really want that. It didn't fit in with anything that I had going on here. And then I went through and found a container of Mega Flake from Indigo Blue, and it's called Gin and Tonic. And the colors in there are greens and golds and silvers. And I thought, you know what, greens and golds and silvers will go a lot better than if I add, like a psychedelic kind of foil or a pink or whatever. And so I went in and mostly took out the silver, and I will be adding that in the next portion of the video, I believe. So yeah, just apply the flitter glue, let it dry. This stuff I actually had dry for overnight, and it still worked the next morning, so that lets you know that it won't dry out right away. And then I put some polka dots on her wings so that she would have a little bit of sparkle up at the top of the page, more so to balance the page than anything else. And then after it was all nice and dry and clear, see, it dries perfectly clear, I went and grabbed the Mega Flake and started adding in the little pieces of foil. Now, this is a really, really simple process. You just put it on, you smooth it out, you make it nice and smooth so it adheres to everything, and anything that's sticky you add another piece of foil to. Simple, right? Yeah. So that's what I did, is I just went through slowly and added all the foil, making sure that I covered everything up, making sure that if there was parts that weren't adhered, then I would go through and pull them off. So there we go. There's a chunk of the different colors. I guess you can't see it. I should have maybe flipped them over or unfolded a couple of them to try and see what colors they were, but I wasn't all that concerned. I was going mostly for the silver, so I wasn't all that concerned about it. So once everything is adhered on there, I go through each section and I smooth it out and rub it in so that it's very well adhered to the glue. Nice smooth rubbing, and I can see the shape of everything I'm putting on there. And as I'm doing that, I'm checking to make sure there's nothing else that's sticky. Anything that's sticky, I add another piece to. Anything that's going to be really easy for the foil to come off, I'm pushing it down just a little bit more. And I'm filling it and filling it and filling it up until every little sticky spot is covered, whether it's a big spot or a small spot. And once that's all done, you don't really have to do anything beyond that. You need to take away all the excess, of course, and you could do that by just rubbing your finger along it or scraping it off or anything like that. But what I use is a tool that I stole from a shaving kit that my husband was throwing away. And so it's the brush for the electric shaver that I took because it's a little bit more firm. Oh wait, no, maybe this is one of the makeup brushes that I got from my grandmother. That makes more sense. But I do have one of those little razor brushes, and they work just as well for this. And yeah, so it's a little eyebrow shaping brush. And so I'm just going along the edge. I'm not scraping things away. I'm just kind of rubbing them away so that they come off at the edges of where the flitter glue is, so that things are a little bit more clearly defined and everything's going to stay on, and I'm not going to have a problem with it all coming off in a later date. So once I've created all these little tiny pieces down here, I don't throw them away. I'm going to use them on another project. And the first thing that I'm going to use them for is to drag some of them up to the top in order to cover those sparkly dots that we put up there. So here's the first circle. I'm just taking a bunch and then smoothing it over top and kind of putting a little bit of pressure on it. So now you can barely see where those spots are, but I know that there are 3 on each wing, and so I kind of threw some stuff on there, hoping that I could find where those sticky spots were without touching them. And so these ones on your left, they are nice and dry and everything's sticking perfectly. And then the ones on the right are the same thing. So that is the end of this project. In part 1, I created the background, and it was several layers and several colors and all kinds of different processes to it. And in video 2, I created this sprite. I show you how I drew her and what my process was thinking-wise as I went through. And this one is the third and last video in which I assemble everything and put in all the finished details. If you didn't get to see those other two and you have an interest in it, just go and check in my playlist for mixed media, and it should be there. Otherwise, thank you very much for watching, for subscribing, for liking, and for sharing. This was Sprite for Mixed Media Monday.